Hi, Conductor Certification File Rulings, FRA, Code Federal Regulations 49, Statute 242-119 Training. Each railroad shall adopt and comply with a program that meets the requirements of this section. When any person, including but not limited to each railroad officer, supervisor, employee that violates any requirement of the program which complies with the requirement of this section, that the person shall be considered to have violated the requirement of this section. B. After the pertinent data as specified in Statute 242-105D and A, each railroad prior to the initial issuance of a certificate to any person that as a conductor shall determine the person has, in accordance with the requirements of this section, knowledge to safely perform the conductor in each type of the service that the person will be permitted to perform. C. In making this determination, the railroad shall have the written documentation showing that 1. Completed with the training program which complies with the paragraph D of this section. 2. The person demonstrates his or her knowledge achieving the passing grade and under the testing and evaluation procedures of the training program. 3. The person demonstrated that he or she is qualified for physical characteristics of the railroad or is in pertinent segment other than over which is the person has performed service. D. Railroad elects to train previously untrained person to be conductor shall be developed an initial training program which as the minimum includes the following. 1. Determining how training must be structured, developed, and delivered, including an appropriate combination of classroom, simulator, computer-based correspondence, on-the-job training, and other formal training. The curriculum shall be designed to impart knowledge of and ability to comply with the applicable federal safety laws and regulations, orders, as well as relevant railroad rules and procedures promulgated by the implementing of the applicable federal railroad safety laws, regulations, and orders. The training shall be documented on person's knowledge of and ability to comply with the federal safety laws and regulations, orders, as well as railroad rules and procedures. 2. On-the-job portion of the training shall be consisting of the following 3 components: a brief statement describing the tasks related to steps an employee learning should be able to perform. 2. A statement condition, prerequisite tools, equipment, documentation, briefing, demonstration practices, and necessary for learning and transferring. And 3. A statement of standards of which proficiency is measured through the combination of task, step, completeness, and repetition. 3. Prior to beginning initial safety-related tasks associated on-the-job exercise, the employer shall make a relevant information on or materials such operating rules, safety rules, and other available to the employees involved in referencing. 4. The tasks related to the steps associated with the on-job exercises for the particular type of the conductor service passenger conductor shall be made together in one manual, checklist, and similar document. This reference shall be made available to all employees and in those on-the-job exercises. 5. When new safeties related railroad laws, regulation, orders, technology, procedures, equipment are introduced to the workplace, the railroad must review its training program and modify its training plan accordingly. E. To provide a previously untrained person being certified as a conductor, a railroad shall require the person successfully complete the formal initial training program developing pursuant to paragraph D of the section associated with any associated examinations covering skill and knowledge of the person who will need to possess in order to perform the tasks necessary to be a conductor. 2. Demonstrate the satisfaction of railroad with the input, qualified instructor on the job, proficiency successfully completing the tasks necessary to be a conductor. However, the person may be perform such tasks under the outside supervision of a person who has necessary operating experience as an on-job training process prior to completing such training and passing the field evaluation. 3. Demonstrate the knowledge of physical characteristics of assigned territory, successfully completed the test created by personal qualified physical characteristics of the territory. If a railroad is used written for the purpose of the paragraph E3 of this section, the railroad must provide a person being tested for the opportunity to consult with a supervisor, employee, or who proposes territorial qualifications for territory to explain a question. G. A person may acquire familiarity with the physical characteristics of the territory through the following methods. The methods used on the railroad familiarizing its conductor with a new territory while starting up a new railroad. 2. A method of use of railroad for starting operations over newly acquired railroad lines. 3. The method of using the railroad for reopening along unused route. H. The method of listed in G of the section shall be described in the railroad conductor qualification program required under the part of the this submitted according to the procedures described in Appendix B of the state of this part. If the ownership railroad is transferred in the company to another conductor is transferred from one company to another. Conductors of acquiring company may receive familiarization training for selling company prior to the acquiring railroad commencing operation. J. A railroad shall designate its program required in the section time period in which a conductor must be absent from the territory yard before requalification physical characteristics is required. K. A railroad program should include the procedures used to qualify and requalify a person on the physical characteristics. L. Railroad should provide continual education on certified conductors such as each conductor maintains the necessary knowledge concerning railroad safety operation rules, compliance with applicable federal regulations, including but not limited to hazardous materials, passenger train emergencies, preparedness, brake system safety standards, pre-departure inspection procedures, passenger equipment safety standards, physical characteristics of territory. 242-121, knowledge testing. Each railroad shall adopt and comply with the program meets the requirements of this section with any of the person, including but not limited to each of the railroad or railroad officer, supervisor, employee violates any of the requirement of the program which complies with the requirement of this section. The person shall be considered to have violated this requirement of this section. After pertinent data of the statutes 242, 105, D, and E of each of the railroad initially certify or recertify any person of the conductor for any type of the service, shall determine that the person, in accordance with the requirements of this section, demonstrates sufficient knowledge of the railroad rules and practices of self-movement in trains. In order to make a knowledge determination required for the paragraph B of this section, railroads shall procedures for the testing of the being evaluated for certification as conducted that shall be 1. Designed to examine personal knowledge of the railroad operating rules and practice safety and movement in trains. 2. Objective in nature. 3. Administrate written and electrical form. 4. Cover the following subjects. Safety. 1. Covering the following subjects. 1. Safety and operating rules, timetable, compliance with applicable federal regulations, physical characteristics of the territory on which a person will be or is currently serving as a conductor. 5. Use any of the job-aided railroad may provide with the conductor. 5. Sufficient accurate measure of the person's knowledge of the recovered subject. 6. To conduct with the open reference books or other materials except for the degree of the person is being tested on his or her ability to use such reference books and materials. D. The conduct of the test shall be documented in writing. Documentation shall be containing sufficient information identifying the relevant facts relied on in the evaluation purposes. E. The purpose of the paragraph C of the section, railroad must provide the persons being tested with the opportunity to consult with supervisor employee who possesses territorial qualification for the territory to explain a question. F. The documentation shall indicate whether the person passed on and failed their test. G. If the person fails to pass the test, no railroad shall permit or require the person to function as a conductor prior to the person achieving the passing score during the re-examination of the person's knowledge. 242-123, monitoring operational performance. Each railroad shall adopt and comply with the program meets the requirement of the section when any person included but not limited to each of the railroad officer, supervisor, and employees violates and requirement of the program complies with the requirements of the section. The person shall be considered a violated requirement of this section. Each railroad shall have the program monitor to conduct the certified conductors before an unannounced operational rules compliance test. The program shall include the procedures to address testing and certified conductor who are not given an unannounced compliance test in the calendar year pursuant to paragraph F of the section. At minimum, such procedures shall include the following. 1. A requirement unannounced compliance test must be conducted within 30 days of the returning conductor services. 2. The railroad must retain a written record indicating the date of the conductor stopped performing services requires certification pursuant to this part. Due to the conductor return of the performance services, the required certification pursuant to the part the date of the unannounced compliance was tested performed, except as provided in paragraph F of the section. Each conductor shall give at least an unannounced compliance to test in each calendar year by a railroad officer who meets the requirements of statute 217.9 B1 of this chapter. The unannounced test program shall test those persons certified as a conductor pursuant to 242-107B1 in compliance with one or more operational tests in accordance with the provision of 217.9 and chapter one or more of the provisions of 218.99 and 218.109 of this chapter. Test those persons certified in passenger conductor pursuant to statute 242-107 for compliance with one or more operational tests in accordance with the provision of 217.9 of this chapter. 1. And the person certified in the passenger conductors pursuant to 242-107B2 that does not require the compliance with the paragraph Part 218 subpart F. The chapter accepts under emergency circumstances the requirement for annual unannounced testing, and the requirements of Part A218 subpart F may be satisfied by annual training. 2. Reserved each railroad shall indicate the action of the railroad will take in the event of the find deficiencies with the conductor's performance during an unannounced compliance test administered in accordance to this section. For a conductor who is not performing services required in the certification pursuant to the part is not given in an unannounced compliance test. However, the certified conductor returns to the service requires a certification pursuant to this part. The certified conductor must be tested pursuant to the section within 30 days of his or her return. 242-125 certification determinations made by other railroads. The railroad consider a certification of a person as a conductor may rely on determinations made by another railroad concerning the person certification. Railroad certification shall address how the railroad will administratively train the previously uncertified conductors extensive training experience previously certified conductors who have this certain type of expire. If the railroad certification program fails to specify how it will train a previously certified conductor hired from another railroad, the railroad shall require the newly hired conductor to taking a hiring railroad's entire training program. B. A railroad relying on another railroad certification shall determine 1. The prior to the certification is still valid in accordance with the provision statute 242-201 and 242-407. The prior certification was the same type of the services and certification being issued under the section. The person has received training in the physical characteristics of the new territory in accordance with statute 242-119. The person demonstrated the necessary knowledge concerning the railroad operating rules in accordance with 242-121. 242-127, reliance on qualification requirements of other countries. A Canadian railroad that is required to comply with the regulation of railroad conducts joint operation with the Canadian railroad may certify that the person is eligible to be a conductor, provided in this determines that A, the person is employed by the Canadian railroad, B, the meets or exceeds in qualification standards issued by the Transportation of Canada for such service. Subpart C, Administration of Certification Program.